Hey everyone, and welcome back to Microsoft Dev Radio. Today we have Scott Bounds and Bruce Cosden with us, who are two cloud solution architects who've been doing some really amazing and interesting stuff in the cloud for modern creative collaboration. Scott and Bruce, I'd love to hear more about what you're doing and get some insight into some of the cool stuff you're doing right now.
Oh, hey, thanks, Sydney. This is Scott. So, Bruce and myself, we've been working with media and entertainment customers, throughout the U.S. and the world, actually, on some cool stuff on how to do post-production, especially now with COVID. And I think what's really important is, Bruce, didn't you just do one of these a little bit ago about WVD? And today we're talking about how to create content with programs like Adobe and Avid, to go onto TV and film and social, et cetera. So, Bruce, maybe it'd be a good area to start here. What's the difference between the general virtual desktops and kind of what we're doing with media content creators?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Scott. And glad to be here on this broadcast with everybody. So, last week, if you tuned in, we talked about Windows Virtual Desktop specifically. And it's a great way for users to have a secure desktop for productivity applications and some lightweight editing. You can do things in there like Photoshop pretty easily over an RDP connection utilizing Windows Virtual Desktop. But when you get to, big production studios and standard media entertainment, where I focus on a core basis, post-production work such as video editing, where you have 4K or 8K content that requires editing and timeline scrubbing on a remote machine in real time, requires extremely tight latency variances that you can't get on a standard Windows Virtual Desktop. Additionally, you may have files of terabytes of size that require extremely high IOPS rates to read and write for the software to keep up with that real-time reading process. And finally, time is money, so speed in processing is critical, thus requiring machine classifications with powerful GPU requirements. Thanks to modern computer architecture, though, with GPU virtualization, capacity can be dedicated to a virtual machine to perform video editing and rendering. So we have machine series today like the NVV3, which uses the NVIDIA Tesla engine, and the NVV4, which utilizes AMD's Radeon Instinct. And these can support those high-speed, high-editing media workloads that we have today.
Yeah.
What? Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. So, I think the other key thing that's a little bit of differentiator is when we look at these solutions, we actually work with a big partner called Teradici. And Teradici actually has PCOverIP, which gives us the, to really have that high resolution, the low latency, the full 8-bit color. So when you think about someone sitting down in front of a media composer, editing video, that really gives them that snappy experience. Because kind of what we want is an editor sits down and it could just be a zero client or some type of setup in their home. They don't really know the difference if this is actually running in the cloud or if it was sitting under their desk. I mean, that's really the key thing we're really trying to drive here for these scenarios.
Yeah, that's exactly what we want to achieve is, that zero latency effect where it feels like it's a desktop in front of you. And the biggest factor when doing that is the region. Customers need to be close to the data centers that are hosting those workloads to reduce the physical barriers of that latency. Additionally, because all Azure regions are connected via Microsoft dedicated fiber connections, you can transmit, ingest, synchronize content across those regions for a diverse set of users that are across the globe that are doing editing in real time together. And as you mentioned, PCOIP from Teradici is a software-based tool that helps reduce that effective latency to provide that fast screen response. It reduces the perceived delay in software. But Scott, why don't you tell us about some of the customer scenarios that we've worked on together?
Yeah, so I think that's really important because one of the first questions we talk to a customer, Bruce and myself, is what do you want to do and where do you want to do it? And that kind of comes into that regional aspect. So we're seeing this across a lot of different workloads. So I would say some simpler things like workflows from folks in the marketing department. So imagine, hey, we have a show coming on, a movie trailer, we have to do a promo. So these are the folks who are ingesting this, and they need to cut these promos and really drive that. And really with COVID, people were coming to us and say, hey, we need to get this up right away. So how can you do this remote? So that's the key aspect too, where these people used to be in their office. Now they're sitting at home actually doing this. So you kind of think about the lighter kind of workflows with maybe they're doing promos or compliance, all the way to the full episodic, and even at the really high end with film. And there's film productions for like tentpole type of movies. But I think there's a lot of similarities between all of it. You think about it, the basis is very similar. So you have like a core that you really then add to. And that core is really the compute from Azure. So Azure has the compute, like the NV GPUs that Bruce talked about. You also then have the storage. So storage is really key. And once again, it could vary. So it could be something, really simple like Azure Files or Azure NetApp Files, all the way to the high end. This is kind of where we work with Avid Nexus, where we actually have very fast premium blob storage for like online production for editing. So, I mean, that's really the key from Azure. And then we add on the Teradici for the remote, for people to be able to interact. And then also with Teradici, actually I have one here in my office at home, is you can use like Wacom tablets and all that type of stuff. So that's kind of the basic. So Bruce, when you think about that basic, what are some of the key things that customers need to think about as they kind of put these things together, and think about that as an edit pod with workstations and storage?
Yeah, totally. That makes a ton of sense. And I think there's a few things that you need to consider when you're thinking about this. One is the network connectivity that you're going to need. So from Azure, do you need to reach back on premise and either transmit content, manage content, or do auth on premise? So, some of the software that we're talking about here, like Avid or Teradici, needs access to an Active Directory controller for security controls. And you can put that up in Azure, run it there just fine, or you can leave it back on premise and utilize your existing Active Directory controllers. But in that case, you would need a VPN connection back home, which is super easy to set up from Azure. Or you can have an express route, which has much higher speed capacities and is a dedicated circuit, which provides, transfer of massive amounts of content back and forth if you need to do that, or access to applications on-prem.
Yeah, I think that's really key because, one of the questions we always ask customers, especially, when this whole COVID crisis started was, how fast do you need to go and what are your security requirements? So that's when you kind of think about it, where someone needs to go really fast. Hey, I'm good with a separate login. You could have a standalone AD up in the cloud, but hey, I want single sign-on, multi-factor. That's where we got to figure out how to set up the VPNs or express routes and all of that.
Yeah, exactly right. And with Azure AD, you get that multi-factor authentication out of the box if you don't already have it.
One thing, Bruce, that we've been working on with a lot of customers is really the automation. So maybe could you talk a little bit about what we're doing with automation to really, think about rolling out these pods and using scripting?
Yeah, so automated deployments are critical here, especially with these media workloads and pods, because sometimes you need to scale up quickly in multiple regions on demand. And with these scripting processes, where you can use Azure ARM automation or built-in automation tools, which are based on JSON, or you can use Terraform, which has a declarative scripting language using HashiCorp's control language. With those tools, you can spool up this infrastructure on demand when necessary, and then tear it all back down when you don't need it anymore to save money.
Yeah, I think that's really key because I know a lot of the customers Bruce and I are working with, especially on the enterprise side, really like Terraform. They're standardizing on that. And once again, if you think about it, once you have these machines, you turn them off. You only pay for when you turn them on. But hey, I need to roll out a whole nother, another department. I need 10, 15, 20, 50 seats. It's just scripting.
What about some of the more advanced configurations, Scott, and tools that might be involved in this solution?
Yeah, so if you think about, that's the core, like the editing core, usually think about layering more stuff on. So I think one of the first things is file acceleration. So once again, think about work from home, edit from home. How do you move these files around? And these are big video files. These are, gigabytes, terabytes that you have to move. And that's where acceleration comes in. So we have, first thing is, hey, you might add in acceleration. That might be, with partners like Signiant, Aspera, File Catalyst. So how can you get stuff very quickly up into Azure? And once again, also a lot of these are workflows where they're sharing them between like, hey, here's a shop. We might have a freelancer, another department. Things like Media Shuttle from Signia are things that people really share and how they share these things through the workflows. Hybrid is really key. So a lot of scenarios we have on-prem and the cloud. How can we keep those synchronized? Someone could edit on-prem or in the cloud. And once again, if you're more advanced, things like Avid with Nexus and Media Central take care of that. And then, especially on the high-end side with Avid, Media Central adds in a lot of other components with, you can think about what they have from their MAM aspect and transcoding. So that's how you start with the core and really get, further up inside of there.
Yeah, that's awesome, Scott.
So yeah, Scott and Bruce, you talked about a lot today, and it's a lot of really interesting stuff. So I want to go do my homework. I want to learn a little bit more about this. Where can I go to learn more about this?
Sure. So we actually got a lot of stuff that we can, help you get started. So one is we have all the documentation, both from Microsoft and from Avid about the underlying, Azure services and functionality. Also, we've actually been working on a webinar series. So we have this webinar control room webinars that we actually have, and there's high-level business ones, and these are not only talking about editing in the cloud, but also visual effects and rendering. So we have those up on the Microsoft industry site. And Bruce and I just actually worked on with Avid 45-minute deep dive on how to actually implement Avid inside of Azure. So all those are coming. Those webinars, there's actually going to be 4 total. The Avid one as well as Studio in the Cloud, they're all going to be on the Azure YouTube channel. So that should be up fairly soon, hopefully within the next few weeks.
Yeah, and the one thing I wanted to mention is there's a GitHub site coming as well. So we talked about automation earlier. Some of those automation templates we talked about will be deployed to this GitHub site, as well as our other partners and internal resources will be releasing content on this standard GitHub site for media entertainment. And that link will be coming soon as we get this site stood up.
Yeah, and all those are great resources, because really what we're finding is customers. I think what we've seen is people talk for this for the last year, 18 months, 2 years. But really the situation we're in right now, people really need to do remote editing, remote compute. And now once they go there, who knows if it's ever going to go back on-prem where you can actually have these people around the world working remotely. So it's really exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was going to say, Scott and Bruce, thank y'all so much for your time today. The links that you talked about, as those videos come up, they'll be in the description. We already have a link here at the bottom of the video and in our description box. If you want to go learn more about this. And again, as the other stuff comes live, we'll put those links in the description box. We'll come back, make sure to keep you updated. But Scott and Bruce, thank you again for your time. For everyone else, really look forward to having you here again on Dev Radio, where we're going to bring you some of the brightest minds and most interesting solutions here on the Azure cloud. We will see you next time.
Great.
Thanks, Sydney.